And what I'll ask for presenters, you'll see your slide come up. Just give your presentation and then let me know when you're done and I can move on to the next slide and then the next person can present as well.
Garrett, can I start?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So hi, everyone. Welcome to CAIR. My name is Ming Min. I'm assistant professor in the School of Information here at RIT. My research interests in the area of HCI and accessibility. Specifically, I have three research directions. The first one is artificial intelligence assisted or AI assisted user experience analysis tools and methods, in which we're looking at ways to optimize the way we analyze usability testing sessions. The second direction that I have is the design and evaluation of accessibility applications, also based on the AI and the visualization technologies, which are two training technologies we're using nowadays. In particular, I'm focusing on older adults population. And the last direction that I have is mobile wearable and the Internet of Things, or IoT, sensing and interaction techniques. I think if students from my HCI 720 or 722 classes know that I maintain this research interests as well. So the goal of this direction is to looking at novel ways we can understand the user's environment, and then also provide context-aware services to the user. And recently, I've also looking at the VR applications, in particular for the aging population. So yeah, so I think later on you will hear from one of my PhD students talking about the first direction, which is AI-assisted UX tools. Welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt UnerVault. I'm a professor in the School of Information, and my research area focuses on applications of artificial intelligence technology in different ways that might benefit people who are deaf and hard of hearing. And so we look at several different areas. One is in automatic speech recognition to create captions automatically. And we investigate how this could be used during live meetings or ways in which this might improve captioning for video on the internet. We also do some research on sign language related technologies. So this includes some work that looks at sign language animations, which are useful for transmitting information in a way that's more accessible. But it also looks at application of technology to understand sign language. For example, to make it easier for someone to search for a sign language word that they want from a dictionary, or for someone to get some feedback if they're learning the language as to whether or not they're performing things correctly. We also have been investigating how someone might interact with a personal assistant, like an Alexa, using sign language as well. So various applications all related to sign language. We've also examined automatic text simplification technology that might make it easier to read English text. And some of this might have applications for people hard of hearing in the computing workforce. So you'll meet some of my students later on today. Welcome to the event today.
Hi, everyone. It's very nice meeting you and welcome to this open house event. And my name is Suyan Li, and I'm a postdoctoral research associate in CAIR Lab and in the School of Information, and working with Professor Matt Onafaf. My research interests are in intersection of accessibility and human-computer interaction. And particularly, I'm interested in designing inclusive, intelligent, interactive system for people with different and all abilities. And more recently, I'm interested in also interaction design between artificial intelligence and human, and also human-centered AI design. So right now, I'm currently leading on one project, which is making an ASL video anonymization with using face disguise technology. So I'm looking forward to discussing and meeting with you and talking about all the great projects. Thank you.
Hi, Mick McQuaid here. I'm a lecturer, so I'm a little bit different from the other faculty that you'll hear from here in that my primary focus is teaching. And I do participate in a few research projects. So those include improving accessibility for graduate student education in the STEM disciplines, the ethics of persuasive technologies, data science education, data visualization, and the barriers that novice makers face when they begin their making journey. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Oh. I'm a professor at the School of Information. Primarily, my interest is in assistive technology. As you can see, I'm currently focusing on the navigation area, especially in smart cane. I'm very interested on indoor navigation, people who are blind and visually impaired. I'm currently working with a number of students in that area. Also, I do have some experience in the mobile device app interface design. We are currently focusing on interface design for blind and visually impaired. And also, going back to assistive technology, I'm interested in applying technology for deaf and hard of hearing. One of the areas we're looking at is provide assistance in driving for deaf and hard of hearing. And lastly, I'm interested in the usable security as well. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rohan Peters. So I'm an assistant professor with the School of Information as well. And my main research interests are in multisensory technologies, immersive technologies, and accessibility. So in these areas, I'm quite interested in research directions such as how we can use multisensory technologies for effective learning. This was a recent project that we have been looking at, how we can use multisensory technologies such as smells, taste, thermal, and haptic technologies to facilitate more stress management and attention management during online learning. And another research direction that I'm very much working on is called immersive accessibility. That's where we focus on how we can use immersive technologies such as AR, VR, and haptic technologies for accessibility related applications. And also we are looking at how we can make technologies such as VR devices more accessible for user groups such as blind and visually impaired users. And I'm also interested in usable security, where we are trying to look at how we can make the authentication procedures more accessible for blind and visually impaired users. And yeah, so those are my main research interests and directions. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Kishin Shinohara. I'm an assistant professor here at the School of Information, and my research interests are in accessibility and in design. And in particular, I have projects that are focused on how we can make the design process effective in terms of including accessibility in the product outcomes, and then also how we can make the design process itself accessible to designers with disabilities. I'm also focused on research that looks at the barriers that graduate students with disabilities might encounter, particularly in STEM fields. So the different kinds of accessibility challenges that they may come up against, and investigating what we can do to improve that. And then also I have research that looks into strategies about how to improve how we teach accessibility in computing education. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Garrett Tigwell, and I'm an assistant professor within the iSchool. We use technology in so many parts of our lives and often find ourselves spending time within digital spaces. So this idea of digital spaces being the apps that we use on our phones, such as Instagram or even the calculator app, websites like Reddit, or services like Amazon, Dropbox, or Google Calendar. There's many forms that these take, but an important aspect that these digital spaces have is their design. And not just the underlying code, but also the visual interface itself. So it's crucial that everyone has equal access to all of these digital spaces, especially those from marginalized groups. And so it's the design aspect that my research focuses on. And I look at how we can ensure accessibility occurs early on in the design process to avoid circumstances where a burden is put on the end user. And by that, I mean avoiding situations where end users are the one that have to find ways to overcome inaccessibility that could have been avoided with good design. Specifically, I've been investigating the various challenges that designers face at different stages of their process that has resulted in inaccessible design. So for example, one contributing factor is that often popular design tools don't provide guidance for meeting accessibility standards. So for example, how do you guide a designer to choose accessible color palettes? Overall, my work is looking at understanding and building solutions to these challenges. So that kind of concludes the faculty and postdoc introductions. The next part of these introductions will be a little bit longer, and they're going to be student-led projects. So again, to the students who are presenting, when you see your slide on the screen, just turn your video on and start, and let me know when you're finished, and I'll put on the next slide.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lale. I am a new PhD student, and I have recently joined the CAIR group. Well, my research is in the area of HCI and accessibility, and the subject of my project is improving web and mobile accessibility resources for Iranian designers. And I will research and explore the role of culture in web and mobile accessibility, and the challenges that designers face during their design process. I mean, the Iranian designers. And as I am a new PhD student, I don't have very much to say about my research because I have recently joined the group in spring semester. But I can say that if you are interested in learning something in depth and you like to do research and look for challenges for different solutions and problems, well, PhD may be exciting and interesting for you as it is for me. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Oliver, and I'm a third-year PhD student. I'm working with Dr. Matt UnerVault, and I'm working on the project on automatic text simplification as a reading assistance tool for deaf and hard of hearing adults in computing. So there are a few sides to investigating automatic text simplification. One is developing the language and simplification technologies themselves, which is typically done by people who work on natural language processing. And the other one is working on the human side of the technology, focusing on things like whether people are interested in these technologies. If they're interested, how would the technologies benefit them? And how can the technologies be best designed to achieve those benefits? So this human side of is typically done by people who work in human-computer interaction, HCI, and accessibility. And it's the side of the work that we work on at CAIR, specifically focusing on the use of automatic text simplification for deaf and hard of hearing adults in computing. So there are a few reasons for this. One is that prior research has identified diverse literacy skills among deaf and hard of hearing adults. And so for those with lower literacy, it can be a challenge to be in a profession in which people are required to learn new skills or new materials on their own, like computing, for example. So while there has been other accessibility research that has focused on using automatic text simplification for other user groups, like people with dyslexia and second language learners, there had been little work that had looked into using it to provide reading assistance to deaf and hard of hearing readers, or readers in a professional field that involves self-directed learning. So there are different approaches to text simplification, like replacing individual complex words with simpler synonyms, as the one shown in the GIF in the slide. Or you can also replace like longer chunks of text, like sentences or paragraphs. So we investigate, for example, which of these solutions are more interesting to deaf and hard of hearing adults, as well as how these things should look. For example, like should the complex words be highlighted? Should people be able to request the simplifications themselves, or should they be applied automatically? And that's just to give you a few examples of the questions that we look at in this project. There are also different things that we do to investigate those questions. So those include surveys, interviews, focus groups, in which we've asked deaf and hard of hearing adults about their perspectives on automatic text simplification technologies. And then there are other projects that we've done that are more like usability testing, in which we give people a couple of options of things to try out. And then we measure subjective things like how they felt about it, or more objective things like their effectiveness on a task. So I think that should give you a good high level idea of our project. So with that, I'll turn it over back to Garrett.
So, hi everyone. I'm Akhtar Al Amin, a second year PhD student. I work with Dr. Matt UnerVault. So my research aims to investigate caption occlusion severity effect on people who are deaf and hard of hearing while watching live TV programming. So recently there has been an evolution of live streaming in various TV networks, especially in local TV channels. So these live streaming of programmings include mainly emergency announcement and specifically like COVID-related declaration or weather emergency. So such time-sensitive information needs to be disseminated to all sorts of communities. So to effectively disseminate this information to 15% of US adults who are experiencing hearing loss, and this population is heavily relying on the captioning of TV programs. So that's why different regulatory organizations have mandated that caption should be provided in these live TV programmings. But even if TV broadcasters are providing captioning services to these TV programs, this service is not yet satisfactory to this deaf and hard of hearing community. Especially when caption is blocking some important on-screen information, like some speaker is speaking, like blocking that speaker's face, or sometimes blocking some other textual information, like typically current TV programs use some textual block in the lower side of the TV screen. So the blocking those textual information may create a confusion, or like may impose this community to miss some vital information that needs to be perceived. So to identify blocking which on-screen content or information region influence highest on deaf and hard of hearing viewers' perception, or which one causes lesser effect on deaf and hard of hearing the viewers' perception, and to what extent they are affecting the viewers' judgment, we conduct several experiments, as Oliver said, like study with deaf and hard of hearing participants. And we observed that deaf and hard of hearing viewers' judgment of caption quality not only depends on these visual elements of the on the TV screen, but also on the genre of the TV program. For instance, we observed that our participants want to know that who the what's the credential of the speaker is when they are watching some emergency announcement like COVID related announcement or weather emergency announcement. On the contrary, when our participants, as like deaf and hard of hearing participants, watch TV news, they are not actually interested in knowing TV anchors credentials like name or title. So such genre-specific variation of deaf and hard of hearing viewers' TV content prioritization lead us to redesign our experimental plan. So what I am trying to say is, in the path of research journey, we really sometimes do not know that what we are going to unveil at the end of the experiment. So I believe that as a researcher, it is essential to enjoy such excitement of knowing the unknown. So that's pretty much it. Thanks everyone, and welcome to CAIR.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diamond. This is my first year as a master's student here at RIT. And I'm going to talk to you a bit about the research that me and my collaborators, Professor Shinohara and Wenhao, are working on. So our project's entitled Exploring the Ideation Process of Blind and Low Vision People. And the ideation process is what we define as a means of brainstorming and gathering and generating ideas. So some methods we may use to ideate include discussions, post-it notes, and pen and paper sketches. However, techniques such as sketching are heavily visually based and rely on the collaboration between designers who are often sighted. And this can alienate potential blind or low vision designers, right? Since the technology design process isn't inclusive or accessible to their needs. Additionally, there are few, if any, blind or low vision designers in the user experience field, and frequently they are consulted in the beginning or in the end stages of UX projects, but rarely are given the lead or act as a designer. So this study will allow blind and low vision participants to take control in the role of the technology design process that they are not often given. So using interviews and workshops, we're exploring opportunities to make the design process more accessible to them. The design workshops will be held remotely via Zoom, and the workshops with 2 participants who have little to no knowledge of the user experience design process. We'll go through the user-centered design process, which involves the steps of defining a problem, ideation, feedback, and evaluation of their prototype, and then refining their prototype based on the feedback. And participants will be grouped in pairs of 2, with one being sighted and the other being a BVI participant, BVI meaning blind and visually impaired. The BVI participant will be given the role of lead designer, which will involve taking ownership and making the executive decisions regarding the prototype. And the sighted participant will act as a design assistant, contributing ideas and offering solutions as well. And finally, there will be a researcher, me, who will facilitate discussions and assist and provide clarification and feedback. And you can see the little figures on the slide. Prior to the workshop, we will be sending materials to the BVI participants with examples of interfaces designed using materials. The interviews that my collaborator Wenhao conducted with BVI participants will have provided insight on what type of materials we will use for our design workshops. And some of the examples include felt, pipe cleaners, and Play-Doh, and other tangible and tactile items. We have recently started our recruiting process with the hopes of completing at least 4 design workshops by the end of March. And our ultimate goal is to determine the feasibility of the materials given and providing an alternative to pen and pencil and paper sketching. And additionally, we seek opportunities to make the technological design process more accessible to blind or low vision people and support them in these creative environments. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily and I am a first-year PhD student. And the project that I'll be presenting on today is called Co-UX, which is collaborative visual analysis of usability test videos for digital products. So in the usability test videos that we're using, the participants are following the Think Aloud protocol. So they use the system while continuously verbalizing their thoughts as they move through the interface. And this allows researchers to gain insights that they wouldn't otherwise know just by observing someone's actions. So this type of protocol is widely used by user experience practitioners to identify problems in an interface. However, the biggest issue with this is that analyzing large amounts of these recorded sessions is really time consuming. And it is also susceptible to the evaluator effect. So this means that multiple people identify different problems for the same interface, even in the same user session. So this means that if only one evaluator analyzes a session, the results could be unreliable or even incomplete. And this is why collaboration is so important in the data analysis process. So we were inspired by recent research from Professor Fan that identified subtle speech patterns that users exhibit when they encounter a problem. So we extracted features such as speech rate, loudness, pitch, the sentiment of their words, some UX keywords, as well as the scrolling speed and scene changes from these videos. You can see that in the figure there. And by displaying these features below the video player, we hope that UX evaluators can leverage this information to enhance the thoroughness of their problem identification. And then on the right side of the panel, we have the problem annotations where the users can enter their description of the problem, choose some usability heuristics. And these are integrated directly into the interface, as we learned from expert interviews that evaluators usually have to use different apps, such as looking at the video on one app and then try to take notes on a different application, which causes inefficiencies in managing data and pinpointing timestamps. And then we incorporated two modes to address the evaluator effect. So the individual mode is for independent problem identification, and then a collaboration mode for problem merging and consolidation. So currently we are in the process of running an exploratory study with paired participants to assess the effectiveness of this tool. And we're almost at the end of the recruiting for that. So far, I've had a really great experience collaborating and doing research in the CAIR Lab. I did my first internship back in the summer of my first year undergrad, and this prompted me to pursue the PhD. So I would encourage any undergrad students to get some research experience during their undergrad. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to CAIR. I am Sal Hissan, and I'm a second-year PhD student in Computing and Information Science program. My advisor is Dr. Matt Hunerfauth. So the project that I'm working on is American Sign Language Dictionary Search System. So different estimates indicate that there are between 500,000 and 10,000 deaf and hard of hearing people in the US. But that's not the only group who are interested in learning ASL in general. There are several other groups who are interested, such as ASL students. Different estimates indicate that there are between 100,000 to 200,000 ASL students enrolled in different courses across the US. Then parents of deaf and hard of hearing individuals, and other hearing relatives of deaf and hard of hearing individuals are also interested in learning sign language. Teachers teaching in bilingual program might also be interested. And finally, to create better awareness and sensitivity to deaf and hard of people and appreciation for deaf culture in general, it's important that we learn American Sign Language. But the tools that are required to learn American Sign Language are often not that easy to use. So one such tool is the American Sign Language Dictionary. So while it might be trivial and easy to search for a word in in most languages, searching for a word in American Sign Language is difficult because unlike other languages, you cannot type in a string to search for the word. And instead you have to rely on your memory of what the sign looked like to search for it. So current dictionary search systems allow search by feature selection. And what I mean by that is that they require the user to input certain linguistic or other features of the sign in order to search for it. But that's often cumbersome to use for people who are just trying to learn ASL. Therefore, search by video dictionaries become important, which allow users to search for an American Sign Language sign by inputting a video. But then the accuracy for these systems or the underlying artificial intelligence and machine learning component of these systems is very low. So our job as HCI researchers is to design effective interfaces that can support interactions with the American Sign Language Dictionary and allow users to search for a sign. So to this end, we've been designing an interface that allows the user to perform the sign in front of a webcam or a camera, and the system would return a list of search results, as you can see here on the slide in the GIF here. So that's the thing. Some of the methods that we've been using to improve the design of this interface are, again, methods that are grounded in HCI research, such as interviews, usability testing, but we've also been doing some more empirical studies using visit a false protocol, in which we ask participants to interact with prototypes of such dictionary search systems and get both subjective and objective feedback. So that's what I've been working on this project. And welcome to CAIR. And yeah, thanks.
Hi, everyone. So very welcome to CAIR session today for this special event. I'm Murtaza Tamjid. It's my first year in the PhD program. I'm working on a project called Disabled Graduate Students Project. In this project, we are trying to investigate accessibility barriers for the graduate students, and we are also working to see how they can be better supported. For looking at for accessibility barriers, so we are open to any possibilities that can create the barriers, such as tools, technologies, attitudes, and even policies of disability service offices. This research is important because we have been seeing that only few students from undergraduate program, they transition to high-level programs like master's and PhD. This underrepresentation of the disabled students in higher programs, they impact ultimately the research, the innovation, and the tools that can be created for students or for anyone with disability. Another issue that we have been noticing is that the current policies and resources that are given to disabled students by disability offices are shaped by undergraduate experience. So they affect the students who are in graduate programs, because currently the policies have not considered graduate specific requirements like research, tools, and other activities. So if graduate experience or graduate school is not accessible, of course, less students from undergraduate will transition to graduate programs. And how would you be interested in research? So to better understand the accessibility challenges for graduate students, we have been focusing on 4 different aspects that can influence the students. One of that is, of course, the students themselves. So we have interviewed about 19 blind and low vision and DHH students to see how they encountered problems in terms of accessibility, like what challenges they faced. That was the first part of the project that we completed. That we already interviewed 19 students. And there are another aspects in academics that can affect the students. One is the staff who work at the disability offices. Another is the websites, which contain information and policies for the graduate students. And of course, the faculty who advise the students with disabilities. So for the staff, we try to interview them to ask like how they accommodate the students, what challenges they face when they accommodate graduate students, or what challenges some graduate students reported to them. We are also open to see their attitude toward disability. So when it comes to the website, we simply see, I think, how the current information on the websites affect the students, which includes the guidelines and other policies. So we have not yet started recruiting and interviewing faculties, but that is in our plan, that we are aiming to recruit about 20 faculty who have advised graduate students with some disabilities to collect their perspective about some access issues at graduate level. So for the staff, we have already interviewed about 16 staff, and we are still recruiting some more staff from the Office of Disability Services. And we have analyzed 18 websites from different universities across the United States. From these 4 aspects, well, actually the first 3 aspects that we are already done, I can a little bit talk about some of the findings that we have. So from the students that we interviewed, they were all PhD students. So we asked them like what challenges they face, and we asked them about their overall experience in graduate education. We realized that in general, the accommodations that are provided to them are insufficient and ineffective. So they face challenges in terms of accessibility in almost all areas of graduate life. So in future, we are trying to interview new students. At this time, we will focus on some technological aspects that can create a problem for them. For example, maybe reference management tools, MATLAB, some survey tools, and any other tool that graduate students use. I can also talk a little bit about some of the findings that we are still putting together for the staff, from the staff interview and from the website analysis. One thing we noticed is that disability offices, they don't have staff who are knowledgeable about assistive technologies. They are all generalists, so we can imagine like how that will affect the students. Those staff, they reported that they are not really interested in providing assistive technology support to the students. Another thing that we noticed, they don't differentiate between grad students and undergrad students. Since graduate level activities are different from undergrad, so that can have an impact on the students. We also noticed that disability offices, they have limited resources at their office. One of the resources, of course, human resource, another is time. Some said that like each staff or each person at the office, they manage about 900 to 1,000 students with disabilities alone each time. So that can be a challenging, that can increase the time that they review the requests and provide accommodation. Another thing that we focused while we were interviewing the staff was the attitudes of the staff themselves. So we realized that they differentiate between students with visible disabilities and students with invisible disabilities. They provide some advantages to students who have visible disabilities. They might waive the requirements, or they easily provide accommodation to them. So they also reported some issues on the faculty side. For example, they said that some faculty over accommodate the students because they see the student's disability as a weakness, and some other faculty do not accommodate at all because they don't believe that students with disability should be in academic or in graduate level especially. So according to the staff, faculty is one of the obstacles for implementing accommodations. So to wrap up our entire project, from our entire project, we are hoping to at least raise awareness about what is inaccessible in graduate programs and identify how technology and systems should be better designed to better support the students. And of course, we hope to see the number of students, faculty, and researchers with disabilities to increase in the programs. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CAIR Open House. My name is Sarah. I'm a second year HCI master's student. and I'm collaborating with Professors Stacy Watson, Teo, and Garrett Tigwell. Our study is about accessible authentication for deaf and hard of hearing users. So basically, our study focuses on trying to understand if DHH users have any kinds of challenges or any kinds of concerns with authentication. And the reason why we chose this topic is because it's not researched, like it's assumed that it works. But there seems to be a lot of work when it comes to visually impaired users, cognitively impaired users, or also users with motor impairments. But when it comes to deaf and hard of hearing users, there's no means of different types of authentication, to better support them. And so far, right now, we have done 41, we've collected 41 survey responses, and we've conducted 12 interviews and understood that mobile authentication with the passwords and Face ID are okay, but authenticating yourself through the phone to your bank or to customer service is hard. So that is one area that we found, like having to speak on the phone and having to authenticate themselves, and banks not allowing a third party. That's what we have found so far through the interviews. Yeah, we are still looking into it more and conducting more interviews. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us in today. And I'll hand it over to Matthew Seda.
Hello, my name is Matthew, and I'm a fourth-year PhD student here in the CAIR Lab. So my focus is working on designing automatic speech recognition, improving accessibility for small group meetings. One thing that happens, a challenge that deaf and hard of hearing people face in the workplace, is not being able to have strategies or plans for communicating with their hearing co-workers or their bosses. There are often last-minute meetings that happen within a work environment, impromptu meetings, and you can't get an interpreter there immediately. Because it takes time, you have to plan ahead to be able to reserve an interpreter, which means that deaf and hard of hearing people don't have access in those impromptu meetings. And past work has shown that there are a lot of people that do not really, are not really satisfied with the option of writing back and forth with their coworkers and with their bosses. So we're trying to figure out a solution which would include automatic speech recognition, maybe on a mobile phone, or the various types of technologies that could be used. And there's an app that I've been working with a group of researchers at Gallaudet University that people would be able to download to their phone, and then the hearing people would speak, and that would show up on the phone in automatic speech recognition, and be able to the deaf and hard of hearing person could read that and then respond by typing. In the past, the past study said that or found that automatic speech recognition maybe could work, and we're trying to create a tool that would be make these situations a lot more accessible. However, automatic speech recognition has a lot of errors. It is not 100% correct. The technology is improving over time, but it could still take several years before it becomes really foolproof. So we're working on how we can improve automatic speech recognition. Not doing it as a curriculum, but more we're going to be focusing on the design of the apps that we're considering. We're trying to design the apps in a way that hearing people will encourage hearing people to speak more clearly. And so as people enunciate more clearly, then the automatic speech recognition has a higher accuracy. One thing we are thinking about doing is having an incentivization system within the app for people who are hearing. Maybe they have a sign or a signal of some sort, maybe a warning when the technology has an issue understanding the hearing people, then they'd be able to change that up. We also are doing a design where we pair up hearing and deaf people. And we're doing our research and testing within those groups with specific factors. And we need to find out if the people within the deaf and hard of hearing community really like this kind of communication or not, and if it does actually clarify communication between deaf and hearing people. So in order to test the efficacy of those particular apps, we're experimenting within a lab when we're using a prototype with like a real world situation of a small group meeting. And we're going to be recording the voices and then analyzing that and analyzing their speech patterns of various hearing people. And that would be a way for us to improve the app. So if you've enjoyed this presentation, I hope you get to see you here next time. Hello, everybody. My name is Abraham Glasser, and I'm a second-year PhD student. And my advisor is Matt Hunerforth. My main focus is ASL interaction with personal assistive devices. And maybe you want to know what personal assistive devices are. And there are several different types. Here's one, for example, Alexa from Amazon. This particular one is called the Echo Show. And you see that it has a display and it has camera on it. And that way you could do video calls through this particular device. And there are other personal assistive devices. This is a smart speaker. It's called Next Mini. It's from Google. So those personal assistive devices have been becoming very popular in recent years. And there's a huge percentage of the population that owns at least one, or sometimes two or three of these devices. They have them in their homes. And some people have them in every single room of their house. But they're not accessible for deaf and hard of hearing people. And what Matt recently talked about, automatic speech recognition, this is what the personal devices use. A hearing person speaks, the device recognizes it and responds. Now, for deaf and hard of hearing people who don't use their voices to communicate, they use ASL to communicate. Obviously, the device can't understand sign, and so that's a problem. Those devices are becoming more and more accessible as they're adding displays and the video cameras, but they still are not able to understand sign until we have the ASR, meaning automatic sign recognition, but we don't have that yet. So within my research, I'm investigating how deaf and hard of hearing people would want to use these devices. The deaf population does have different needs. They also have different preferences, different than different requirements in comparison to the hearing population. Last year, I did some online surveys and interviewed some deaf and hard of hearing people. And I've collected that data, and I wrote a paper that has already been accepted for publication. And so what I'm doing now, I'm doing an experiment called a Wizard of Oz experiment. And if you remember the movie, The Wizard of Oz, the wizard, he was really a fake. He was behind a camera that had the projection of what he wanted to portray himself as. And so it's the same kind of thing. With us, we're going to have an interpreter who is going to be acting kind of like the wizard. So we'll have a person come into our lab and we're going to show them the personal assistive device. And we'll have a deaf or hard of hearing person there in the lab and ask them to go ahead and sign. And we're going to have the interpreter, who's hidden, actually voice what is signed. And then the technology will understand the interpreter's voice and in that sense, understand the participants signing. And the device will then respond to the deaf user, show them the result, show them a picture, whatever it is that they're asking for. And then I will ask the participants about their experience with that. And once I collect those results, then I'm going to be doing my paper and sharing my research with the community. And hopefully we'll be able to reach out to particular companies like Google or Microsoft or Amazon. And maybe we can push them to make these devices more accessible. So thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Garrett Tigwell. I'm a third-year PhD student here at RIT. My advisor is Dr. Tom O, and my other collaborator is Rez Malalos. My primary research is actually on the smart cane. So just to give you a bit of an idea, so people who are blind or have low vision, they would be likely walking with a white cane. However, and they've been using a white cane for many years. However, the white cane does have its set of limitations, being able to detect obstacles that are further away, or being able to actually determine the type of obstacle that it detects. It requires like a tapping type of motion, but there are many limitations with that. And so there has been research for over the past many years in looking at how to use advanced technologies like obstacle detection using sensing systems, notification methods, to be able to help people who are blind or visually impaired to overcome the white cane's limitations. And so one of the concepts that has been being researched is called the smart cane. Basically what it involves is taking a white cane and adding obstacle detection capabilities using sensors. And then the user is notified with some method, either like through sound or through a haptic-based type of approach. And so the research in that is my specific area is around the haptics, in the sense I'm looking at what are effective haptic notification methods that can be used on the smart cane handle specifically for blind or visually impaired in indoor environments. So I'm looking at methods like vibration or like a poking sensation or some other similar type of haptic methods that basically could provide effective notification to the blind and visually impaired when they are navigating indoor environments. Can they be notified effectively of upcoming obstacles, or can they be given navigation instructions like turn-by-turn type of instructions, like left to go left or to go right? Can haptic methods be effectively used? And so where my research have kind of progressed is prototypes have been developed in which a cane has been used as the base. Sensors have been added to the cane, and then we're using different haptic methods. So one prototype, sorry, my dog. The different haptic method is like using a vibration. There's another prototype that we've used where it uses like a roller on the handle. And so one study we did is comparing using the one with the vibration. We had basically we recruited about 10 people who are blind or visually impaired, they walk with canes, and we had them conduct a usability test where they take these prototypes and walk around an obstacle path. And we're looking at, okay, is it helping them to avoid obstacles, or are they touching obstacles? And then after that, we are conducting qualitative interviews where we just wanted to get their thoughts. What did they think of the vibration, or what did they think of the using the rollers? Was it comfortable for them, or was it very difficult for them to feel the vibrations and so forth? Sorry. And so where we left off in this study is our last study couldn't really be conducted with many participants due to the COVID situation. But what we did find out of, at least out of the responses that we did receive from participants, is that some people actually liked it. They could detect the difference, they could feel the vibrations, or they could feel the rollers, and it could actually help them to navigate an obstacle path. Not completely, but at least it can definitely help them. However, some users did experience where they couldn't tell a difference, or they couldn't feel the vibrations or the notification method that was used. So the next stage of the research is maybe looking at, well, instead of using a haptic type method on the cane handle itself, maybe take it off and then maybe use a wearable device. Maybe like a ring or a bracelet or something of that kind, where it'll be connected through, like, say, Bluetooth to the smart cane. And so when a user is navigating, like, say, a room or navigating some particular path, the cane will do the obstacle detection, and then the wearable device will let them know through either a vibration or something similar type of haptic method that there is an obstacle. So this research does require different types of prototypes being developed. It does require recruiting different participants, whether they be blind or some are legally blind, or they have what they call retinitis pigmentosa, which means that they have some vision, but it's slowly they will eventually become blind. Some of the participants were blind since birth. Some of them became blind later in life. So there is a whole spectrum of participants that definitely we like to work with. And it does require usability testing and a level of interviews to be able to gather their feedback and to see which type of method, in this case, would be effective for them. It can be very, there's a lot of planning involved, but there's a lot of very useful information that the participants can provide. Even something that you didn't initially plan on, they can be telling a lot of information that definitely can be very useful for that particular study or to learn in general. So that's one thing about research. You have a particular idea in mind for a project, but the participants can provide you a lot more information than that you may not have intended or anticipated. So I welcome definitely to the new folks to the CAIR meeting, and look forward to any further questions. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm losing all of my windows. So have I stopped recording?